To God, who is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the one who always was and always will be. Amen. Science tells us that the moon was established some 4.5 billion years ago. And science further tells us it was formed as a result of a planet-sized collision with Earth. But science also asserted there was no water on the moon. And our proof was our brief walk on the moon and gathering rocks and looking around and coming back. Well, now we know there has always been water on the moon. A colossal crash of 5,000 miles per hour caused a plume 40 miles high. And our own NASA Ames, some of you may know people who work there, in La Crosse, followed that in a rocket and recorded for 4 full minutes. There is plenty of water on the moon. And water is so important. It is, of course, what we use in baptism to bless the new life. It is also the standard by which we judge there can be or cannot be a civilization. And certainly, this is very good news for those of us who look forward to possibilities of space exploration. Here on Earth, water may become scarce, but ultimately, God has provided. And the important thing to note of all this is that this is as it has always been. Science is a wonderful tool for understanding our universe, how we fit into it and how we don't. Yet it is always in modification. I look back at my textbooks I had when I was studying for my bachelor's pre-med. I took a lot of chemistry, math, and then physics nearly did me in. But at any rate, those books are like dinosaurs in the midst of today's knowledge and understanding. The difference between science, however, and religion could be put into terms of the difference between the accumulation of knowledge and our attempt to understand and assimilate it, and wisdom. There are 2 different levels entirely. I was privileged to listen to many times Paul Tillich when I was in seminary, and he talked endlessly about wisdom und knowledge. Very heavy German accent, and it's a good thing I knew some German. Otherwise, he would have been practically incomprehensible. In my day in seminary, he was the guru of theology. However, he also is not read nearly as much as at one time, because if there's anything that is true about our understanding about God and our understanding about His creation, it is in a state of flux. Our understanding changes. Our growth in knowledge and understanding of God's message to us is also evolving. So it is that water is used in one of the most important of our sacraments, the sacrament of baptism. And yesterday we had the wonderful privilege of adding a new member to the church through baptism, Agnes, the Cummins grandchild. Science can do many things for us, and I certainly am privileged, if you will, and all of us should be thankful at this time of Thanksgiving that we live in this particular age. Think, for example, if you had to have a toothache remedy at the time of even our grandparents, or that you had to undergo some serious health remedies that were even unknown a few years ago. And think of how upsetting it is if something science once told us as far as health is concerned may no longer be valid. I'm thinking, of course, of the announcements we've had just recently on the need for mammograms. And yet, in all this flux and all this change, it is a wonderful time to be alive. It is a time of discovery, a time of great efforts to really begin to think about feeding the poor when there are so many hungry, to really think about worldwide efforts at human rights, to really treasure our democracy as we see so much of the world falling into totalitarian states. So we need to be thankful that this is our time, a time in which we live, a time of great discovery, excitement, and wonders as we discover who God is and what He is as it relates to our life here on earth. Our nation is, of course, struggling with a recession, so that here in the States there are more people unemployed than ever since the Great Depression. There are more people going hungry and more people on their last legs with maybe the final mortgage payment not paid. And we see our state legislature and we see our government struggle to state how to balance a budget that probably will be deficit for a number of years, and our nation in D.C. struggling with a health program. And yet, still this is the greatest nation. We are a democracy. Democracy is not known to be efficient. Democracy is a struggle of ideas and a rule by the majority, and majorities change. As a lawyer, I certainly am always interested to see in the history of certain decision-making the changes that have occurred. Think, for example, the momentous change from separate but equal being constitutional to the great decision which decided it was not constitutional because it was not equality for all citizens. So we are in a state of flux and a state of change. But I think of that old pun that I heard way back when, back in New Haven some eons ago probably, which said, Adam and Eve are talking together and they are being ushered out of the Garden of Eden because they disobeyed God. And Adam turns to Eve and says, "My dear, I think we're in a state of transition." And we are all in a state of transition. We change ourselves. Our understanding of God today is probably different from the understanding we had even 10 years ago, or at least should be, and certainly has grown up from our days of Sunday school. We can learn certain things from parents. We can learn certain things from school. We can even teach a child to say thank you. But it's quite a different kind of effort for a child to be thankful. And so it is at this time of Thanksgiving with a beautiful church, beautifully decorated, magnificent choir and organ,